Tim, what is it about these bugs in a box?
There's no way to shrink it down. There's no words that can describe it. They bring a healing. You either know or you have to know. The smell of a healthy hive, once you smell it, you'll never forget it. But just the ability to get up, take your health in your own hands. See, that's what we have to do. The desire to work these bees and the healing you get from it. It's something about a box full of bugs, you know what I'm saying? It's got a healing to it.
Mike, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Wow, those bugs in a box. There's something about them. It's an insect that can do so much, so many functions it has, so many things it has within itself, and we get to manipulate it. God allowed us to manipulate His creation and do the things we can do. We can make products from it, and it's just exciting to sit there and be able to propagate them and manipulate them and watch them do their thing and explode on you and watch the direct results of what you do. To me, there's nothing like it. It's like almost an addiction when you get to do this and you have this ability given to you to do this. So to me, that's what they are. They're just amazing insects.
Randy, what is it about those bugs in a box?
There's just something magical about those bugs in a box. I don't know a whole lot of beekeepers that don't have a watching chair or some way to sit out and just watch their bees. You just watch them work. It's just something that it's like watching a campfire. It's like sitting around at midnight watching a campfire. You're out there by yourself and it's quiet. But I do the same thing with my bees. They don't know all there is to know. I'll never know all there is to know, but there's so much to learn. It's all so interesting, and it brings together a community, in the way we're doing it with YouTube and with other things. It brings together a community of like-minded people that are, we're all a little off, kind of. It's relaxing, it's fun, and I'll be doing it from now on, just like you, I'm sure.
Bruce, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Man, I don't know. It's addictive from the day I first opened one up. It's therapeutic to me. It's always an adventure and I just never know what to expect, and it's just very miraculous to me how they do what they do, and I don't know what it is. It's just something, there's an it about it that is just addicting that I just love, and I guess it's a way to interact fully with nature, and it's like opening a gift. Every time you open one, you never know what you're going to expect. It's a surprise, and so many things to learn, so many things to do, and so many things you can do with it, and I just love it. If you ever doubt that there's a God, just open a beehive and look at the bees, because there's just no way that just happened randomly. There's definitely something divine about that, and I just love it.
What is it about these bugs in a box that keeps us coming back, that keeps us working them in the rain, traveling across the country?
And the heat.
And the heat, the snow, the rain.
Snow?
The snow. That's a long story, right, Tim? Oh. There is just something about the bees, and I think the bees are just the conduit to people. Bees are a conduit to a connection that's way greater than ourselves. We can't fully understand what it is, but we're drawn to it. As we've heard folks talk about, there's a healing with the bees, mental, physical, spiritual. It ties people together, it makes those connections, it brings us all together, it fulfills a part of us, that the result of engaging with the bees, the result of that action, the consequence of that action is joy and happiness. What is it exactly about those bees? I don't think I'll ever know, but I think I'll spend all my days trying to find out. Well, hey guys, welcome back to another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. Brian, Bruce, how you guys doing?
Doing good, man. It's good to see you guys again.
Brian, how are you doing? Look how smart you're looking tonight.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
I don't know what's going on with my mic and all that tonight. No clue.
Well, it feels like you've been a little bit rusty, it seems. We've been you got the glasses throwing you off, the computer doesn't know who it's looking at anymore, and the microphone's like, who's this handsome, smart looking guy with okay, there it goes. Now it goes back to regular Brian. There it is.
Yeah. No, I had to put these on because there's a surprise here tonight that I see. So I have to try and look, at least a little smarter than what I normally do.
Okay, now take off the glasses for a second.
There we go.
Okay, there's Brian Coper,
right.
Beekeeper. I'll put him back on. Now there's Brian Coper, Master Beekeeper. You see the difference?
Here, hang on a second. No. See, when the glasses are all the way up like that, then it's just like kind of apprentice. But with each level, it's almost like they slide down a little bit. So I can sit and look like this now. Is that how it goes?
Look at that.
Oh, man.
Well, it's good to see you guys. It's been this is the time of year I think where everything kind of piles up and stacks up. We got a lot of fun stuff to share. But last week, I was so under the weather. I didn't even have a voice. I couldn't even think about getting in front of the computer. The week before that, we were coming back from South Dakota on a pheasant hunt, and I got a couple fun photos to share with you about that. But I always hate when we miss and we all don't get together, but it's a lot of fun when we can. And I think folks understand. It's a lot going on for everybody, and we appreciate the time that we do have together. If you're tuning in live tonight on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel, if you're checking out the replay later, or you're tuning into the Nature's Image Farm podcast, welcome, and thanks for spending a little bit of time with us tonight. We're excited to have you here. We've got a fun chat in store tonight, a winter beekeeping chat. It's that time of year where you're thinking, what more is there really to talk about bees? But if you find yourself asking yourself that question, you almost have to ask yourself another question: are you really a beekeeper? Because if there's one thing beekeepers love to do, it's talk about bees, no matter when, right?
This is the perfect time of year to talk about them too.
It's kind of fun to talk about bees when you're not in the thick of keeping them alive or splitting them or growing them or selling them or getting a crop off them and all kind of things like that. But tonight's I love that intro that we played first, and the reason we played that is tonight we have a very special guest. There are a lot of great beekeepers, a lot of folks that we consider friends and family that are in this beekeeping community, and one of my absolute favorite beekeepers, not only on YouTube, but honored to call him a friend. I love this guy's particular style, his approach. I love his humbleness. I love his heart. I love his integrity. Everything about this guy. And I'm going to talk him up, and he's going to get after me for it. But I think a lot of folks can look up to that kind of approach because it's just a no nonsense, nothing but integrity, sharing the way that he does things, not telling you how to do things. So tonight, folks, it's our absolute honor. Give it up for the one, the only, Silver Diamond White Trash, Mike Berry. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Honored to be
What's
here.
up, Mike?
What an intro, right?
Mike, where did we? Let's go back in time for first off, Mike. How the heck are you? I've missed you. I feel like we haven't seen you since the conference last year. It feels like that. What's what? Get it at some point tonight. Let's get caught up on all things Mike Berry and Berry Best Honey. But Mike, how have you been?
I've been good. Been busy, but been good. It's just one of those things. You know how life gets. Sometimes we get busy, we get caught up, and we're trying to do our bees, we're trying to do our life, and trying to do everything else. But just been really busy. But it's slowing down now, so that's a good thing. But all is well. All is well.
Awesome, Mike. Tell it for folks who who haven't caught your most recent video, getting kind of like a yearly recap, Brian can leave a link here where folks can check out that video. Tell us about what's the this entire season been like for Mike Berry at Barry's Best Honey.
Oh, you know, it's funny you ask. Now, we were just talking. I was just talking to Mr. Ed today. He called me out on the job site, but I was talking with him about the time you texted me today, Greg, and we were talking about it, that we're both very glad it's over and ready to start a new one, hoping we get just one normal season next year, because it was the video, you know, it was just bits and pieces, but mostly it was about the ups and downs. I wanted to show that we were excited about getting started. I wanted to show how early we got started and how everything exploded, and we thought we were going to be just booming with honey, chasing swarms, keeping them in the box, you know, to all of a sudden we had a freeze and everybody around here was down, and that was everybody around here. I don't know anybody that didn't do better than 50% of what they did last year, including commercial beekeepers. That's from Mississippi State University talking about that. And then, you know, how when we thought we finally got it and we did get the honey, then we had a drought, and then things exploded again, and we had just craziness. It was just an absolute, you know, you get those seasons where you see things for the first time. This is one of those where many firsts were seen all the way up at the very end. And I finally just had to stop and get away from them. Don't open them again and see what happens, because I don't want to see anything new. I want to wait till next year to see something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, watching Mike's season, I mean, mine paralleled it. I mean, the weather-wise, it was almost exactly the same. It usually is, but it was just a weird, strange, difficult year this year. I do think we had a little better tallow results than you did over there, Mike. Here in my particular area up north, they had issues, but here it was not bad. But overall, I mean, we're still fighting stuff here. It's just, I mean, it never ends.
Yeah, it wiped us out over here, and it was funny because it was a belt of tallow that was out. You know, it was so down south, like New Orleans and south, those folks, you know, they didn't get the freeze we've got. So the freeze hit the folks that had the tallows that were just putting leaves on, those green, light green, tender leaves, and so that frost or that freeze went all the way up, you know, all the way up north, of course. But there was a point where the tallows weren't putting on leaves yet. So between that point and the part of New Orleans, everybody, that belt across the south, just got hammered with the freeze because the tallows never recovered. So up north, their tallows went ahead and bloomed normally. Down south, they had never gotten hit. And us in the middle, well, we just took a major hit. But the good thing, and Jeff and I were talking about this today, was the honey we got was fantastic this year. It was a very dark golden caramel type honey. It's delicious.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of honey, I have a special jar of honey here. It is from Brown and Daughters Honey Company in Israel.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
I think he was in town for Thanksgiving, or he came over to the States, and he brought it in. He mailed it to me. I wanted to actually do a little taste test tonight on it. I haven't opened it up. I actually did the lid off a little bit. I got a little tiny taste, but not as much. So I'm going to taste it. It's pretty cool. He's obviously in Israel right now. It's not as it usually is. They're having a lot of issues. Hopefully some things might be calming down in the country itself, but I know there's still a lot of strife over there in the Middle East. So in honor of Connor and his family and the good work he does over there, he's a physician over there in Israel. I thought I'd taste a little bit of this honey from Israel right here from his bees. Isn't this cool though?
That's cool. Nice.
Beautiful. So beautiful, like a light gold color. That is fine. Oh my gosh, that's really good. Whew. Okay, I wish you guys could have some too, but I'm sorry.
Yes.
I mean, way to rub it
That
in.
is it is really good. It has kind of a unique taste, but it's really, really sweet. Let me see. I think he said that variety is mostly eucalyptus and Bolivian rosewood. So I hope it's a little different.
Wow, eucalyptus and rosewood. Interesting.
Very, very good.
Can you, Brian? Can you put a link up to his channel? Maybe we can drive some folks to his.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure, and if he happens to be on here or listens later, maybe he could clarify on this. But I believe there were some issues when that whole thing happened. There might have been some pushback from some trolls on his channel, maybe a little bit because of the fact that he's in Israel. I know he's hoping to get some subscribers. I think I'm not sure how many he's hit, but anyone, if you could go check out his channel, very interesting. He's, obviously bees are bees, and so he keeps them in a very similar manner that we do, but it's kind of interesting to see what he's doing over there in Israel. And he's from Louisiana originally, Mike, Connor Brown is. And I think he married a girl from over there in Israel. And so that's where they live now, but just seems like a great guy. I've got, he keeps me kind of posted on what's going on over there. I haven't heard from him since he contacted me about sending me the honey, but anyway, pretty cool stuff. And I'm excited to have his honey, and I'm excited to have him as a friend. And he is a friend of the stream team. I think it's the middle of the night over there, as in like 2 or 3 in the morning or something. So I'm sure he's sleeping. Every once in a while he checks in during the chat, but oh yeah, Stan Gore says it's 3:15 a.m. in Israel right now. So anyway, pretty good. It's pretty cool. It's really good stuff. And I appreciate that, Connor. I just thought I wanted to actually do a taste test tonight, and I thought it was kind of
awesome.
Fun.
Isn't that amazing that, there's a lot of things that unite folks and divide folks. One of the greatest uniters, I think, for a lot of us is we share a common faith in that we're believers, but there's also another beautiful uniting denominator, and it's these bugs in a box. And I think these two things that we're, I think, equally passionate about, when those collide and you meet folks and connect with folks that share the same values, it's an amazing thing. There aren't, I mean, if you think about it for just a minute, there's a lot of great things that people are interested in, and there's a lot of great things that people share in common. And you might be on a Facebook group page or an internet thread forum or something, but there's nothing quite like your faith, and there's nothing quite like these bugs in a box. For whatever reason, there is just a very special, unique place for these bugs in a box. And that's why it's so fun to have Mike Berry on tonight and to share that clip from, that's been a little over a year ago, wasn't it, Bruce, when we were down in Alabama?
It was,
and hanging out with Mike
that was a good day. That was July 29th of 22. So it's been almost a year and a half, but what a day that was. I can't even, it was incredible. Yeah. It just was such a fun day, man.
It's a blessing to be able to spend that kind of time with each other. You meet folks, you know them. When you don't see them, you miss them. To spend time with them in person is just such an incredible blessing. It's going to be awesome to see so many folks here soon, January 4th through 6th in Louisville at the North American Honeybee Expo. That's going to be a lot of fun. Stan Gore just mentioned, what did he say? Was it 29 days away? We should have a big calendar, and the big X is off, but it'll be here. It'll be here quick. If you're tuning in tonight, I want to say hi to a lot of the regulars tuning in tonight. DC's Bees, Flower Street Farm Bees, Russell Amon. We've got Son of One, our pal Stan Gore from the Texas Friendly Beekeepers. Welcome. Tom Nolan from Hivetown. Tom's all over the place. Looks like I think he just threw that comment up there. Tom, you might as well call Tom Ricochet. I mean, he is all over the place. All the conferences, repping for Not Apiaries. It was fun to have him here for the Creator Convergence. So it's fun to see everyone just kind of doing their thing. We got Todd at Loma Vista Bee Code, Darren the Pennsylvania Beekeeper. The list goes on and on here. We've got, I saw Randy Reed, Trails End Farm, and Ohio Beekeeper. Welcome. There's so many great folks on here, and it's a lot of fun to be able to meet with you. Mike, what's the Yappy Bee Man comments here? I'm here for the awesome guest speaker. This guy rocks. Yes. Look at that, Mike. Everyone's here for you. Mike, tell us about. I know you talked to us a little bit about your season this year. What was one of the most unexpected surprises or unexpected things that you really caught you off guard, like the most this year?
Well, it's great to be able to say the flow did, but it didn't really catch us off guard. It surprised us when the tallows burned. But once they burned, we knew it was going to be a flop. I think what caught me off guard and where I really underestimated the weather was the drought. We had a drought, and if you know anything about how I mess with the bees, I don't feed a lot. I don't do a lot of pollen sub. I don't really need to because they grow so well here with so much. But I think the drought, wow, it we had no rain, and okay, it's going to come in a week, and it's going to come in another week, and we went 6 weeks in 100-degree heat. And finally, as the trees were dying, we realized we're not going to get rain. And we got a little rain just to break it up, and then we went another 6 weeks or so. And outside all the trees that died around here, that were just nothing you can do about some of them. I underestimated what that drought did to pollen. And I learned something. Give me just a second on this, but I learned something from Dr. Jeff Harris as he spoke to us one night about queens. He was talking about size of queens, and it all coincides with this drought. And when I was able to get through the drought and see how weak the bees were getting ready for the fall flow, it all made sense. And what he talked about was, he was talking about length of bees and how we keep them going through the summer sometimes, and really that's what kind of takes their life expectancy away, is we never let them slow down if we're always feeding them. And he talked about how a queen is fed royal jelly all her life, and as pollen goes down, the royal jelly production goes down. She gets fed less. She knows it's time to slow down. She slows her laying down, and then comes back out of it when the pollen comes up. Well, we got wiped out of pollen for weeks, and it didn't dawn on me what was going on. And so that was the biggest surprise, because what happened was, while my hives do dwindle during the summer, I actually bring it on myself, because I know they'll build up enough in fall and be nice compact colonies in the winter. That didn't happen this year. They dwindled down so far, it was scary far. Like, there were a few dead outs, no starvations, but they just got so weak that they were overtaken. And I'd have to say that drought really, I said in one of the videos, if I had to do it over again, would I feed for the flow that never happened? No, because it never happened. It wouldn't have worked out. It wouldn't have made a difference. But if I could do that part over again, I would have gave them a supplement and at least some feed through, because it wasn't a dearth, it was a drought. And there's a difference now that I've learned. So yeah, that was my biggest surprise. And it's got me sweating right now. I went out and shot some infrared cameras on my hives, just looking at them. They look good. The clusters look decent that way, but it's there's about 5 really, really weak hives out there, and it's kind of pins and needles for me because of that.
Mike, do you think you're going to see some longer term concerns? Because you make a great point. A drought is a lot different than a dearth. Are you worried that this is going to affect your overall numbers coming out of the spring, and then what you're going to be able to do as far as honey production for next year? Yeah,
I do. I don't know if it'll affect honey production if we get a decent flow, because again, I know you hear Bruce talk about it all the time, but the tallow tree is an amazing producer. But I do think it's going to affect coming out of winter, because yes, winter bees are. All right, they're made different. They're different bees than summer bees. And actually, that's another thing. Pollen, depending on what kind of pollen you do feed them, will keep those bees. They will continue to make summer bees on in the fall if you're not careful with pollen subs. But I think as they dwindle in the winter, that's where I'm gonna see that these nests, smaller than I've ever seen going into winter, will be affected. And that's where what you say, I am a little concerned with what I might see coming out. And will it affect it? Yes, because how am I going to have plenty of builders to make queens with? How many bees I need to make a queen with in my builder? Am I going to have big enough hives soon enough to make my splits and increase all my numbers to be ready for that flow? I don't know. It's the season's going to bleed over into 2024, I'm afraid, as far as the craziness. So we'll see. I do believe, though, it's going to have an effect.
Yeah. Dan Gore has a question for you, Mike. What is the smallest hive you have going through the winter? How many frames of brood?
Oh, right now, probably 3 frames of brood at best, on a couple of those weak ones. I think most of them are just above the size of a nuke. Some of the strong ones, of course, are about 8 frames, but there's not as many as normal. What I like to go into winter with is 6 to 8 frames in one box with honey on top. And I'm seeing stuff. I'm thinking some out there are 5 frames, maybe 4 in some cases. And that's not a big deal. As long as it doesn't stay cold a long time. You know, we get those winters like the one a few years back where we had 8 inches of snow and we were in the 30s for a week or two straight, and you have 4 frames of bees. That can be detrimental. But you know, that's rare for us. That's what will save it, is making it through. Just, I mean, think about it. In 6 weeks, and Bruce, in 6 weeks, you understand, you and I are going to be cracking tops, seeing who we're going to be splitting. 6 weeks. But that's what might help me. But yeah, some of those that are down to 5 frames, think about what dwindles out of a hive. Even though they're winter bees and they last longer, they live longer. You think about what you see dead in front of your hives over winter. That's the part that has me concerned. What will the die-off be, the natural die-off, and will they still be strong enough? Because February, that's when we get our coldest weather here, and that's when they'll be the smallest.
Yeah, I'm experiencing some of the same stuff here, especially up in that Ozark bee yard, man. I think I just hit them too hard, too late with splits and stuff, and they are really, some of those bees up there are really struggling. I haven't been in them, gone through them in any type of, inspections to speak of. I've just, in about 3 or 4 weeks, I've been trying to feed them like crazy, really, ever since I made those splits, especially with Greg's queens in there. I went up there. The bee inspector was out there last week, and I was in Utah for Thanksgiving. Last week, the bee inspector wanted to take some samples, Nosema samples. He said, "Hey, can I go to some of your bee yards and get some samples?" So I'm like, "Sure." So Ozark was one of the areas he went to, and he messaged me and he said, "Man, those bees they're struggling a little bit." He said, this is a problem I've never had this time of the year before." He said, "There are beetles all in them." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me." And I've seen some beetles, but this time of the year, the beetles usually, they go way back. And so I went up there. I was just passing through Sunday afternoon. We had something going on up in Montgomery. Me and Davis, my beekeeping, but there was a meeting up there, and a bee meeting. We went up there for that. Some political stuff we're getting involved in up there. But I said, "Hey man, can we just stop by the Ozark yard on the way through?" And I actually found a couple of dead outs, and we cracked 3 or 4 hives up and just peeked in real quick. It hasn't been cold really. And some of them no beetles at all, and others there were quite a few beetles we saw just by cracking the lids. And so he had some Swiffer sheets in his truck. I threw a few in some of those, and we didn't go through them. We just couldn't. It was late. The problem I had last weekend is Friday and Saturday, my days off, it just dumped rain. I was going to go up there and get in them and see what was going on, and it just poured rain for 2 days straight, and I couldn't get in them. And so I'm going to probably do a video this weekend, maybe on Friday, a couple of days from now. And I'm really afraid of what I'm going to find up there. I think there are some really good, strong colonies, but there are also some that are really struggling. I've been feeding them like crazy. I will say this, some of them, the weaker ones, I put feed in them like 3 or 4 weeks ago, some of the frame feeders, and they haven't consumed the frame feeders, which I thought was very bizarre. But they've downed all the open feed. They've taken it right down. So I think some of those colonies may have just been too weak to even, I don't know. It's been very bizarre for me. I think the rest of my bee yards are doing pretty well. I just think I broke those colonies down too much, too late. And I'm going to do some ICB, original Tennessee Tim there. I need the murder sauce. One of the problems, Mike, tell me what you think, and maybe you guys too. Down here in the wintertime, if you deal with beetles, do you notice that the treatments don't seem to be as effective in the wintertime for the beetles? Like in the past, like my towels that I use, they don't seem to catch them as much. Just the different things I seem to do don't seem to be as effective in the wintertime, and I'm not really sure why. Seems like maybe
I see that, but I think a lot of that might have to do, and this is me guessing at this, but my best guess at that, because I understand what you mean. The beetles normally calm down by now, but it's not because they're gone. I think they stay with the bees more. They don't seem to propagate as much in the winter because they're trying to stay warm in the cluster with the bees. So because I've seen weak colonies, and I'll open them in February, and there'll be beetles in there, but they weren't affected. And I'm like, what? That's just strange. But no, I never caught them in traps much in the winter at all.
No.
I don't think they're as active. And
You're
the bees,
right.
of course, aren't chasing them as much either. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it can, we do have our warm days, but the bees, what they do on the warm days is they go run out looking for forage.
Yeah.
So they're just not as active. That's
Yeah,
my best guess.
I don't think they're reproducing. Like, I don't see larvae and stuff. I
Right,
just see
right.
tons of beetles. But DCB says, Bruce, more humidity. And that is a great comment because it was very wet up there. These bees in Ozark, probably 75% of them are kind of mostly in the shade. When I first set up that bee yard, they weren't, but the trees have grown since then. And so it was just a very wet, of course it did rain for 2 days, but we went by there. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm really worried about what I'm going to find when I go up there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I think the last time I checked, the other bee yards are all still looking pretty strong. I just really think I broke those colonies down almost too much, too weak, too late in the season up there. But I'm hoping to nurse them through winter. And I think if we can nurse them through the winter, I think in the spring they'll bounce back. But it's just been some weird things. And I really anticipate my video, if I shoot one this weekend, it's not going to be a really good video. I'm not going to look like I have a clue what I'm doing because the bees are going to look pretty rough. So but I kind of like to show everything as well and show you kind of some, weak colonies as well. But I don't know what I'm going to do. That's kind of my thoughts right now of something I may do. But anyway, yeah, Matt Kirtland said I don't have any beetle issues in any of my hives. The other bee yards, there aren't many beetles in them at all. And but they're stronger. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
That whole beetle thing. I mean, I know Brian, you don't really struggle with hive beetles at all, do you?
If I see 20 across all of my hives, that's a lot for me.
20 and 1.
I can come down I probably have some of those colonies right now. I probably have hundreds and some of those.
Well, guys, sharing means caring. Just send Brian a care package with a whole bunch of hive beetles.
I'm going to be doing some.
I wouldn't wish those upon anybody.
Yeah,
hive beetles used to be just the bane of our existence, and it felt like no matter what we did, we were always struggling to get ahead of it. What's amazing is over the last couple of years since moving here to the new farm, which, I mean, we're only literally, I can see the other ridge of the old farm from the new farm, but just nothing's, the equipment has stayed the same. Our bees have stayed the same. What has changed is the soil composition. Even just being one ridge over, the soil composition has changed, where the old farm was a north-facing hill with spring seeps all the way down it, which was beautiful for, I dug a pond at the top of the ridge at the old farm to gravity feed water to the cows and the pigs and everybody, and that was beautiful. However, that's not an ideal, being so wealthy with water on a site. The negative was that a lot of those areas, the soil was anaerobic, it was heavy clay, and it was always dank. It was just the soil was just, it was wet, and that's where we absolutely constantly struggled with hive beetles. Here at the new farm, a half a mile away, on top of a ridge, with we actually have topsoil here. We don't have the kind of water issues at all, and it's just a completely different ballgame. The only time we really have issues, like this year, I might have lost. I didn't lose any colonies to hive beetles, but we had overall maybe 10 colonies where we had slime outs, and we're talking like 2 or 3 frame splits where we dropped a queen cell, something happened, she didn't come back, and then that 2-week interval, there was no bees to kind of recharge the nuke. They went, there's no one home to protect the protein, so hive beetles move in, and that's to be expected when you're making queens and making splits. It's nothing like, it wasn't that long ago where I felt like we needed murder sauce, we needed Swiffer sheets, we needed black landscape fabric, we had to salt the earth, we had to do all the things to try to catch up. So I guess the reason we say all that is, if you are struggling with hive beetles, I don't think anybody necessarily has an answer, but one thing that I do feel like is a reoccurring common denominator is moisture, whether that's humid environment that's just a breeding ground for them, whether that's in the soil or the hive. So that's just maybe something to think about.
You bring up a good point, though, Greg, because I read that when I very first started. You can go to Beekeeping for Dummies, very beginning books, and they'll tell you about that. Kim Flodham talks about that. And that's what it's the soil content. And so what you hear is everybody says, and I'm not saying this isn't true. What I'm saying is you hear it constantly of, put your hives in direct sunlight. Well, Jamie Ellis did a study at University of Florida about hives in the shade, hives in the, what do they call that? The splattered shade, and then
Partial,
sunlight.
partial shade. Yeah.
Dappled.
And
Yeah.
dappled, that's the word. Yeah. And he you know, and I like Jamie. I really believe he does some solid research, and he found that there was not a difference when it came to direct sunlight versus shade with the hive beetles. But if you really go into the nuts and bolts of it, when people start talking about, or when researchers start talking about it, it's all to do with this soil. Well, so I go and put some out in the field in you know, gray clay like we have here, and it's bright sunlight. That's hard, very hard clay. You can't drive a T-post through it with a driver. I mean, it's tough. Well, you don't have any hive beetles in the sunlight because the soil is so dry and it's so hard and it's so, you know. Then when you go in the shade, what do you have? Especially here in Louisiana, that old Mississippi gumbo.
Little moisture.
That's right. And where are my worst beetle problems? Out there under those trees where the soil is so moist and so soft. And that's where you have your problems. And that's been the word on hive beetles since they made it to the country, is if we go back to the basics, that's what they tell you, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know. This year, the hive beetles early in the year didn't seem bad at all. And then it's like they were late. It's like they were way behind usual. I didn't really think I had much of a problem until late in the year. And then, man, they just went crazy. So
and during our drought, we had no hive beetles. So when we had almost 10 weeks of drought, like when I would open a hive, there were no hive beetles. And you know, there you go, dry, arid soil.
It feels like we just solved a modern beekeeping conundrum, because you always hear that, put them in the sun or the shade, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. I've had colonies in the shade that were totally fine. There was no issues at all with hive beetles, and we would have, prime, I love this. Okay, prime example, the old farm. I would be in direct sun, and the ground would still be so wet you couldn't hardly get a four-wheeler up through it, up that hillside, without tearing the ground up, because no matter what, there was still a spring seep, even in direct sun, and never. So it's because of the ground moisture. That's actually something pretty. It's almost breaking news in my mind, because I've never really heard that until when we first moved out here to the new farm. The new bee inspector said, "Wow, this is going to be great ground here for bees. You probably won't have hive beetles here at all." And I'm thinking, what do you mean? Because, well, you're on the high dry ground. Where have you ever heard that or read that? I mean, that was never been a part of anything that I had ever learned or understood up until that point. But this year, a lot of parts of the country had pretty intense droughts. We didn't have no hive beetles. I'm going to knock on wood, but what a fun thing to chase is that idea of sun versus moisture. It's like
I've got another thought here. When Davis was with me Sunday afternoon, like I say, we may have cracked 3 or 4 colonies open, just peeked in, maybe 5. And some of them we didn't see any beetles. Right next to one that would have, you'd open up there, you see a bunch of beetles in the lid. We didn't have time to go through them or anything. But one thing that he said, and let me know what you think about this theory, he said that hive beetles can sense a weak colony. Do you think there's any truth to that? Because you'll be in the same bee yard, like hives next to each other. One has very few. The one next to it has quite a few. It's not like all the colonies are full of hive beetles or have a lot in there. So there's got to be a little bit of, maybe there's some truth to that they can kind of sense the colonies that are weaker. I'm not sure about that, or sick, in any way. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I think it's not that so much as it is they're an opportunist like anything else. Here is a opportunity over here. Can we exploit the opportunity? Yes or no? Well, let's go find out. Let's go see if we can exploit the opportunity. Oh no, there's too many guards. They're running us out. We can't do anything about it. Okay, well, that's not going to be a viable opportunity. You go into something like a 2 or a 3 frame split where the queen never came back. It's not a weak colony per se. It's a 2 frame split. How do you compare weak versus strong in that scenario? But if there's not enough bees to run them out and defend it, so I think what you end up having is they're able to. They know here's an opportunity, and then here is a situation where there is a protein that is not being defended. Let's move in, capitalize on it. But I think they somehow can figure that out.
Yeah, I've had some people say too, and you you do some treatments in the ground, whether it's grubecks, nematodes, whatever. I think that's effective. But I think this time of the year, I don't know that they're reproducing right now, really, kind of like Mike said. I think they're just kind of hanging out, waiting until spring like the bees are. And so, if the theory is that the larvae drop out of the hive and that, whether you have black tarp down, shingles, grubecks, any of the different solutions to try and treat the larvae or kill the larvae when they fall out of the unctures of the hive. I don't know if that really matters too much in the wintertime. Anyway, I didn't mean to take
It's
over
the hive
chat
beetle
with
winter
hive
chat.
beetle stuff because it's the middle of the winter, so most people don't have issues with beetles in the wintertime. So
okay, but I think we've said this a million times, especially with Mike. There are no absolutes, right? So you think okay, so here's hive beetles, right? And hive beetles, like mites, like bees, they have a life cycle. Well, what is the hive beetle life cycle, right? Because now you have to go and start doing a little bit of mental exercise and start to think, okay, if we have hive beetles in our colonies now, like in Ohio, for instance, okay, there I guarantee you, if I go out to colonies, if we dug through everything, we would find hive beetles, right? But there's not a problem. How are those hive beetles replicating all winter long? They're not going out and doing it in the ground. The ground's froze over. So how are they continuing to? Are there winter hive beetles that are just cruising through the entire winter time, or are they finding a way somewhere in the hive that's not protected to reproduce just enough to keep hive beetles in there? I mean, the more questions you ask yourself, the more questions you keep asking yourself.
Right down the rabbit hole.
I have seen in the middle of the winter, like, I mean, I'm talking when it's February and we're in like the thick of it here, Northeast Ohio. I've gone out checking my fondant, and when you lift one off to put a new one on, I'll just see one or two.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what are you doing in here? And I just do the old crush. But you will see them in the middle of the winter, and it makes you just step back and scratch your head like, how are they still in there?
Yeah, I wonder if they just kind of stay warm with the bees and just
Well,
bide their time. I don't know.
There's okay, so beetles, what they do, I've done a lot of study with them. I did a presentation at our bee club on beetles, and I got a lot of stuff. Honestly, I like Jamie Ellis. I read a lot of stuff from the University of Florida. He's got a great paper on beetles. And so I got an illustration. I was just looking for it. I can't find it, but it's an illustration of the life cycle of those varmints, man. And what they do is they actually fool the bees to the point where the bees feed them. So they're eating off the bees. The hive beetles get to the point, especially in the summertime when they're in those jails they make, the bees will actually begin to feed them in those jails. So they don't die in those jails. They just stay trapped in them. And of course, we release them. Well, in the wintertime, I suspect they're being fed as well, or they're just riding through the winter, not necessarily reproducing. But the life cycle is really would be pretty easy for them on warm days down here, or say in South Florida somewhere, even if they have cooler days, for those things to continue. And their life cycle is only a matter of like 3 weeks or so, if I remember right. Wow. And, so once they begin to lay those larvae, you can almost always find one or two larvae in a hive if you look hard enough where there's beetles present. And even if it's just that one or two that's getting in the ground on a warm day and the ground never freezes here, you can pupate those things. And, it's all about that soil where they can pupate. And so I'm like Bruce, though, the instructions on GuardStar, for example, say you don't even bother treating until your first sign of beetles in the spring. So there's obviously some research saying that's when they begin to really kick it into gear. Mm-hmm. And that's about right, because they peak in the summer just like mice.
Mm-hmm. I just want things to go away for the wintertime so I don't have to keep smashing them and seeing them. I want to be gone. I'm used to having them gone for about 3 or 4 months, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I like the old, I mean, some of them I think are really, really bad. Like we're talking hundreds of beetles, and they're on the outside frames. That's what the bees do, run them out there. And so I think I'm going to be doing take the frames out, turn them sideways, tap them on another flat surface, and I'm going to be smashing them.
That is a lot during this time of year.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Well, I haven't really been in them, like I say, in 3 weeks, so we'll see. But I know I saw some the other day when I peeked in, and the bee inspector went to 3 bee yards. 2 of them, he said there was no problem, but up in Ozark, he said that there's a real problem with beetles up there, and I had seen a little evidence of that even before last time I was in them. So anyway, we're going to find out. But anyway, if we want to, it's interesting to be talking about hive beetles in December, but I thought I'd just tell you what's going on down here.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to ever talk about them, to be honest. I can't stand them.
Well, there was a Stan Gore, Texas Friendly Beekeepers, had a good question earlier, and asking Mike how many frames of brood does he have, like the smallest. And Mike, what'd you say? Your smallest colony right now has 3 frames of brood and is a 6 to 8 frame colony.
Yeah, there's one that's got probably 2, but I don't think it's going to make it. That one that was in that last video, but yeah, 3 frames, 3 to 5 are my weak ones right now. And that, again, that's not a bunch of them, but I don't have big, large 8 frame colonies or even 6 frame colonies like I normally do in the majority of my hives, which is scary.
It'd be fun to go around the room here and just share. And Mike, for some reason, if folks haven't found the great Mike Berry yet, for folks who are just tuning in and seeing Mike Berry for the first time, what part of the country are you hailing from, Mike?
I am in southeast Louisiana, just kind of northeast of Hammond, Louisiana, at the I-12, I-59, or I-55 interchange, just about 60 miles north of New Orleans.
Okay, so Louisiana, 2-3 frames of brood, a 6 to 8 framed colony of bees. So let's go a little further north to Bruce. Bruce, what do you think right now your smallest, and we should preface it, the smallest colony that you think will typically make it under your management? What's your smallest colony going through the wintertime? What's your configuration?
I've got some just like what Mike described. The ones that are weaker, I've already lost a few of those. And so I think if they're much weaker than that, when I say, I'm talking, I've got some that are probably on 3 to 4 frames of bees, and that's it, but they've got, very little brood. But those are some of the ones that, those carniolans, Greg, that we've talked about how small those cluster sizes get, and they will really surprise you in the spring. So some of those are the carniolan or Caucasian genetics that I have. And so, and I haven't honestly checked and gone through yours that I got from you and the up there in Ozark in about 3 or 4 weeks. And so, but typically I've run quite a few single deep nukes through wintertime down here without any trouble. They do well. So, 3 or 4 frames of bees minimum you pretty much need. But some of them look really puny and scrawny and they make it, but most of the ones that are on 1 or 2 frames, they'll die out. They just die out. And I've had some that happened the last couple of weeks, actually.
Brian, what about you? For folks, if for some reason, if folks don't know who Dr. Brian Coper, Master Beekeeper, is, Brian, where are you hailing from? And talk to us about your smallest configuration this time of year.
So I'm going to say, Greg, I think you've been in an environment with low oxygen because you're spitting out all kind of silly words tonight. My colonies, they're very similar like Mike, because I have a couple that are a little smaller than what I would like. There's one that even like they were, 4, almost 5 frames, and they were all in the top box. So I literally, last time I went out, I took that bottom box off. I mean, I think there was maybe 10 bees in it. So I've got I've got 2 or 3 that are like that, very small. And then I've got other ones that are, 6, 7, 8 frames. So, and as far as brood up here, I mean, I think everybody knows Northeast Ohio, we're into the cold now. Now, not quite where I would like it, because we've got a couple days where we're going to hit almost 60 here this weekend. And it's crazy because there's absolutely nothing out there for them. You drive around and I tell people it looks like death here. It's not a single leaf on the trees. Nothing is in bloom. So it's very hard on the colonies when we get days like that this time of year. I would rather have it below freezing, and that way they could just kind of stay hunkered in and, not break and cluster and flying around. But somebody got the cuckoo.
Oh man, I love the sound of that.
That would be me.
There we go.
Cool.
Mike Berry just showed how to interrupt.
Look, that is the when I grow up, I want to be Mike. I want to be as classy as Mike Berry. That's a
cuckoo
good
clock.
class is to have a cuckoo clock. That is cool.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
bought it and actually bought it in the Black Forest in Germany. Actually, and had it
Wow,
shipped
that's
back.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
like as far as brood, man, I would have to take a wild guess because this time of year, I have never cracked boxes open to check the amount of brood. It's just, you would do so much harm right now if I went in there and I was cracking those propolis seals. I would cause so much damage. I would guess though that like my larger colonies would have to have 2 or 3 frames, I would think. Now, typically what you see though, like my last inspections, and I'm sure you see the same thing, like where you have those nice large brood patterns, later in the year, they're going to do this and this and this and this. So I would imagine that, there's just little circles. That's it. Because, I mean, we taper down to such a minimal amount of brood. Now then we'll hit December 22nd and things will kind of reverse themselves that, we're a little over 2 weeks away from that. But yeah, we taper down to almost nothing really up here.
Let's see. I want to thank Brian Castle Hives. Thank you for your $20 donation there to hashtag Silver Diamond White Trash StreamTeam. Thanks for that. Got to keep that alive. Miss Catherine, thank you for that $20 donation. We really appreciate that. Grammy, Lisa Gowan, the Grammy's midwife, suburban homestead. Her comment here is, Greg, Pink has about 1 frame of brood in that nuke. She is busting loose. And so, if you're not familiar, Pink, let's see, Pink would sort of be a half sister to, I believe it was Hadassah, which were a couple of queens that we sent Lisa this year. One was the queen we caught on her visit. That queen that we actually caught from the swarm midair was a weird, goofy thing. So go back and check out that video on her channel. What a fun time we had with Lisa, just having fun, goofing off like beekeepers, catching swarms. And then in the middle of catching a swarm, we caught a queen with the mating sign still attached, which was unbelievable. And so we let her kind of mature and prove out. And then once she did that, I sent her down with a buddy. So Lisa could have some of those genetics down there in that yard. I tell you what's interesting is, in the talking about kind of smallest configurations, right now our smallest configuration here is probably on average, we've got a bunch of single 5-frame medium boxes here. That's it. On top of them, here in the next 2 weeks or so, we'll make sure to get some Hive Alive fondant on top. But here's something that is absolutely, these bugs in the box, they always keep us guessing. And as soon as you think you have an idea, you get comfortable. And unfortunately, when you get comfortable, it can create complacency. And then complacency can sometimes kill. What's interesting is historically, if we had a normal winter, like if you were to say, Greg, talk to me about what a normal winter is like for you in Ohio, I would say, well, a normal winter is complete abnormality where there is nothing but highs and lows and warm and cold and ice.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting more ice and wet now than we are getting snow. I mean, our kids, we get 1 or 2 good sledding days a year, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of that, it's ice. They have fun because they go fast, especially here in the hills. But the trouble with that is the type of bee that we've tuned for our area is a bee that is frugal, that downsizes, especially in those kind of and when we have cold weather where there's no forage, they downsize on their own. And they hunker down, and they can just cruise with low populations, with low nutritional needs. They do a better job at doing that without kind of brooding up so much. That only works when the weather does that. So let's see if I can. I accidentally hit the wrong button earlier. I'm gonna see if I can we? Let's see. I want to throw this picture up here, and it'll segue into there. here is let's see, I can't get any bigger than that. Brian, you had a picture of of little Eli there, and I don't think he's grown at all, other than getting haircuts.
Yeah.
Here's old Fritz that we got not too
Wow.
far after Eli there, and recently, a couple weeks back, we missed the Stream Team chat. We were out in South Dakota hunting pheasant with Jeff Johnson at Premier, and we took Fritz, which is a pup. He's 10 months old. He's a German short-haired pointer. We took him out to South Dakota just to see how he does on pheasant. Well, he left a pup and came back a gun dog. And so here's a photo right here of Fritz and his first pheasant, wild pheasant there in South Dakota. So that was
Wow.
that was an absolute lot of fun. What's interesting, so I had to brag on Fritz there just for a minute. The weather is, you start as beekeepers. I feel like the larger you get as a beekeeper, a northern beekeeper, you almost find yourself in a position where you get to a certain point and you're like, what am I doing? Why are we trying to raise all these colonies in this context in Ohio? Because it's out of context to be trying to raise several hundreds of colonies and keep them in Ohio and not have them go south, just for the sake of how it's done and bee population and growth and business plans. So historically, we've been trying to tune up our genetics to a bee that is more in tune with the local ups and downs with the weather and all those kind of things. Well, before we left to go to South Dakota, we have a test yard here of some boxes. And so literally right before we just left for South Dakota, we dug through all these colonies. And we're trying to see what the bees were doing, and we're testing some equipment and things like that. So what was that, 2 weeks ago? So 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I go through there and I'm digging through, single deeps and double colonies. And I'm finding 2 entire frames of sealed brood in colonies. I have never, ever, ever seen that, ever.
Wow.
Right? These are off our Caucasian lines. And I'm thinking, what in the world's going on here? Why are these bees doing that? In my mind, the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole is you get comfortable and you say, okay, here's what our bees do. And that's based on the weather patterns in which the bees have consistently done that. Well, then you have to remind yourself, well, why do we have so much brood? Why is there so much pollen? What is going on? And you have to look at the weather and you're thinking, we haven't even had anything close to warm. We had a week of cold weather, and then it was coupled with 6 weeks of extreme, 60-degree weather and 70-degree weather in the month of November. So the bees are in tune with the weather, and they're thinking, no, it's still time to make brood. So we do. It's not until we get the cold temperatures, we get no kind of protein, no pollen of any type coming in, then they start to slow down. Why are we rambling about this tonight? Because you get comfortable in putting an approach together that suits what you think your weather is going to do that year, and then it all changes. I mean, look at Mike's season. I mean, it was one wild card after another. Bruce is the same thing. You, as a beekeeper, you try to build experience year after year. So as you are making decisions and choices in the bee yard, you're moving the needle forward, and that's all based on prior experience, the art and the wisdom of beekeeping. And then you have goofy things in the weather happen, and you're looking at your bees and you're trying to think, what are you doing? You don't do this. You're not supposed to be doing this. What's going on? And so it's like there are no absolutes. No matter what we do as beekeepers, the name of the game is getting comfortable, not knowing anything about anything, and just knowing that we are going to go with the flow and improvise every single time. Mike, I don't think that approach is for everybody. For folks that need absolutes and they need cut and dry and they need black and white and they need a recipe for beekeeping, that ain't going to work, is it?
No, it's fun, man. You're talking literally when you texted today, I was talking to Mr. Ed, and Jeff and I were talking, and I was telling him that very conversation we had. That was what, the Ozark yard, Bruce? Isn't that where that was? We were in that yard and we were talking about absolutes and variables. And I said there's like 12 absolutes. I don't know, something, it's not many. Like you take a queen out, they're going to make a queen cell. That's an absolute for the most part. But there's variables to everything. And and you can't. Okay, so you can't bank on any absolutes, but I'm supposed to do a talk next summer, hopefully, if it still pans out, at the North Carolina Beekeepers Association. And one of the things I was going to be mentioning was with some mentorship and all that, and about teaching bee biology. And if Stan Gore's still on here, he'll know, because we've talked about this on his page, is teach the very basics of bees, some of the absolutes, the bee biology. This debate, you don't have to be a scientist, but to learn that stuff. Because what you're describing with the bees, and this goes back to when I was in EMT school, and I was learning to be an EMT, and they were teaching us more than we were supposed to know. The paramedics were. They were teaching us physiology. Because what they wanted us to learn was, when you're working on somebody out there in the field, okay, and you see them start to crash, if you know the physiology of the body and you know what's wrong with that body after you've done your initial assessment on that person, you know, why is the pulse rising, the blood pressure dropping? And then you begin to understand the physiology of what the body is doing. And that way you can treat the body, and you can begin to put in interventions so that you can help save that person, or stabilize them rather, to get them to the ER. Same with bees. If you know the basic bee biology, so with what you're doing up there, what struck me is you understand what that, like, you just described why you think that's happening, based on the weather and based on what the bees are doing and based on what you're doing in your test yard, because you understand the basics. So when we know the few absolutes and we know bee biology, when those variables are thrown at us, we can then begin to remedy them. Just like my learning lesson now with the drought. I knew what Dr. Jeff Harris taught me. Now I know how it applies. Now I can begin to, this is what I was going to tell the people up there when I talk to them, knowing the basics helps you be ready. Knowing the few absolute helps you handle those variables when they present themselves to you. And so it's so important. And it's going to, what this lecture is going to do is kind of coincide with, stay away from YouTube as your teacher wholeheartedly. Learn the basics first. No, don't try to learn what Greg's doing or what Mike's doing or what Bruce is doing or what Brian's doing in their area. Learn the basics so that when the variables are thrown at you, you know what to do with those variables. You know how to address that problem. Then go on there and get your ideas from all the YouTubers and all the different people and pick and choose. Because to me, that is the biggest thing, is understanding what's going on with that hive. Just like you are. You're describing what you found, and you've never found it before. It was thrown at you, but you've already kind of figured out why trends are changing or why things are going the way they are. Just like we talked about the beetles. You understood the basics of the beetle life cycle, then you understand the soil composition, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that to me is, so you trying to go on any absolutes, you're going to be done with, me, because it's going to throw you a curve. If you stay stuck in that one way that you learned from that one person, and you didn't broaden your horizons on any type of bee biology or anything like that, you're going to be in for a tough time, because those variables are going to come at you fast and hard. And most likely a person that doesn't want to broaden their experience, and I've seen these as I've mentored, and that's what the whole lecture was about, mentoring, is I've seen how they're done. They give up. They can't figure it out because it was this in the book. This is what the book said, and it doesn't work that way. But know the basics of it, and you'll be able to work with those curveballs. Now, you may not work with everyone. And just like this year, the drought taught me something. Never experienced a drought like that since I've been a beekeeper. But now I know, because I knew the basics of how the queen speeds up and how she slows down, why she slowed down, and why my hives dwindled. That's kind of...
as folks are moving forward with their beekeeping journey, folks listening tonight live on the StreamTeam Beekeeping chat, if you're listening to this on the replay or the Nature's Image Farm podcast, ask yourself the question, where are you at in your journey? It's not a contest, right? It doesn't matter if it's 30 years or if it's 3 days in your journey. But Mike, you're bringing up some really great points that I think for folks, all of us on the screen in the chat or listening later, think about this for just a second. We got Mike in Louisiana. We got Bruce in Alabama. We got Brian in Ohio, and I'm here in Ohio. You know, we just went around the room and talked about, you know, what our configurations are looking like for the wintertime. And they're absolutely the opposite of what most people would think. They would think, well, wouldn't Greg have 8 or 10 frames of bees, or doubles or triples, or Brian's even colder? Shouldn't he have like giant hives? And, you know, like Mike and Bruce, shouldn't they get by with just, you know, little tiny colonies because it's warm and they can feed and they can go to the bathroom? And like, it's one thing to learn how to do something. It's another thing to learn when to do something. But what I would challenge everyone listening to this chat is start to understand and learn why to do something. Why are these things going on? When you understand the why, the when and how is a piece of cake, right? I'm looking in these colonies and I'm seeing, why are these bees brooding up? Well, okay, what do bees need to brood up, and when do they typically do that? And oh, okay, well, here's all these things that puts you in a completely different learning opportunity, spending time learning. Now, the trouble with this, Mike, you do a lot with education, with your local bee club, speaking at conferences and engagements and such. Everybody wants to. I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of folks who getting into a new hobby or a new passion, right? They want to find a quick metric for success. And nobody wants to fail. You know, what husband is going to finally convince his wife to go get a Traeger grill, right? And they're not putting tube steaks on there, right? You're going to go get a pork loin or a pork shoulder or a brisket, right? You're going to go put something nice on there, right? And then so what are you going to do? You're going to YouTube and Google and try to, okay, how do I make a brisket, right? Or what is the 3-2-1 method for smoking ribs, right? You're going to go through and do all. You guys can tell I'm getting a little hungry. So you do all that kind of a thing, right? And the goal is, right? Okay, all I have to do is Google how to do this, when to add the seasoning, when to wrap it in foil, how long does it need to smoke for, right? And then the formula is, ta-da, right? I'm the king of the grill, and my wife's patting me on the back, and we've just justified our expense. And now, guess what? We'll do it again next week and invite over some friends. And here we are. We are now barbecue experts. Well, that's not the way it works with hardly anything, especially beekeeping. Everybody, unfortunately, it is how I think we are as a human species, how we learn. Everybody wants to find the shortcut to success. You might find a shortcut to finding to be successful in something, but you can't. There are no shortcuts, and that's the hard part with beekeeping, is because when there are no shortcuts and you get into doing this thing, the learning curve can be steep, and you're talking about bees dying and losing your investment. I wonder how. I mean, I don't know that I see a lot of education tailored around why. Mike, what are you looking forward to as far as sharing your experience with bees and beekeeping this year? How does your beekeeping kind of shape your approach as an educator?
Well, life experiences, of course, right off the bat, because you know my saying, okay, it's not a how-to, because okay, I'm not bashing any channels that say this is how to. I will bash those that say this is the best way. I don't like those.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I'm not a how-to, because what I like to do, the way it shapes mine is the experiences. I take nuggets from different researchers. I like researchers, and I like good periodicals. I like valued and solid research when I start talking about stuff. But how it's going to shape mine is just, I bring that drought up once again, because that's a learning experience. And so when I talk to people, I talk to them from experience, my experiences, not necessarily a lot of experience, saying, I've been doing it X amount of years, but what shapes mine is my experiences that I've had based on what I've read and how it lines up. One of the things the saying I was coming up with for that lecture, and I pulled it up because I wanted to say it exactly how it was, is knowing the few absolutes allows us to deal with the variables. Okay. I feel like that's the key. And so what I have learned is I've learned some of the absolutes that are there. There are a few. There are not a lot. But that's what shapes, if you want to call it educating people, is what I've learned, what I've seen, and how it has affected my beekeeping operation, what my bees are doing, how I'm going to grow, what my goals are. And so that's what I like to put out to people is you got to find out what your goals are, what you want to do with your bees, but you got to learn from experience. And here are my experiences. This is what I have seen. I don't ever get out there and look, you know, that if you do YouTube, you get these comments back that just, they hammer you home, man. They set you straight. And I always look and go, hey, that's fine, but that's not my experience. Or, hey, that's fine, but that's not how I want to pursue it. So I'd say my experience is what really, when I see anybody that I'm going to talk to, I usually try and pull something that I've experienced. Mentorship is a big one. I just did a little thing with Phil Duncan at his bee club in Southwest Missouri. We did a Zoom for their bee association meeting. And that's what I talked about was mentorship and the pitfalls I have had with it, the successes I've had with it, the gratification I've had with it from helping people, but what to avoid and what we all have to offer as a mentor. So I go from my experiences that I've had. And so that's what I see is how I will be talking to people in the future. That's how I talk to my bee club. That's how I'll talk to anybody is what I've seen, how it's worked out, and, you know, how I can help in my area, especially with problems that are common that we see regularly.
I don't think you can go wrong when you're speaking from your experience. You're not saying this is the only, it's not my way or the highway. It's
Right.
not, this is the best way or the worst way. It's speaking from experience. And what I like about that approach, Mike, is when you're sharing your experience, like Bruce does on his channel, like Brian does, like you do as well. When you're speaking from experience isn't like, you know, I'm patting myself on the back with all my experience. A lot of times when we are actually sharing our experience, we're sharing the hard lessons learned. And those, for a lot of us, the greatest lessons we learn are unfortunately the hard way.
Right.
We lost 150 colonies because we did this, or we weren't expecting this to happen with a drought, and we'd lost X amount of honey crop, and that affected our bottom line. And therefore, here's what the next year looked like. There's so many things that we learn. You can't save everybody from all of their hard lessons learned, but we can share our experience. We can share our hard lessons learned, and hope that we can plant just a little seed for somebody that if they find themselves in that scenario or that situation, there's maybe a point of reference where hopefully they won't partake in the same hard lesson.
Right.
But maybe if they learn from somebody else, or at least there was that in the back of the mind, as they make their own mistakes, they can now share those hard lessons learned with somebody else. And I think that's how we pass the torch. That's how we operate with transparency. And that's how I think it's not just about beekeeping, it's about being our brother's keeper. So it's not just about educating for the sake of, hey, well, I want to see you do well. But there's a certain camaraderie I think that we have as beekeepers from one to another. We want to see folks do well. And so I like that approach, Mike. I think that makes
Well,
makes a lot of
what
sense.
you just said makes what you just said also. When you hear me in some of my videos, I'll say, well, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. This is why it's going to, it's, and then I always try to follow it up with, how do I know? Because it's happened to me or something like that. And what's really cool is I told you, I like to read a lot about it from different researchers, you know, like the Jennifer Berry's, the, you know, Jamie Ellis's, the Delaplane in Georgia, all those guys, mostly Southern folks, a little bit of Northern folks, but because they're more regional for me. But what's really cool is when you see your experiences line up with that research. And so that's when a lot of times when I mention that kind of stuff, it's to say, hey, I know because I've done it. And hey, I know this research lines up in my area because this is what I've seen. And so I think it comes from a point, just like you said, to say, I'm telling you this because it's happened to me and it's worked. And I'm telling you this because it's happened to me and it's been a flop. Or, hey, these things are this bad because if you do this, this is going to really hurt you. And so that's kind of, you know, it's experience. It's saying, look, don't do this, try this, whatever you want to do with this, but I've tried it and this is the outcome.
Yep. That's awesome. I want to thank Bruce's Bees. Bruce, thanks for the super chat tonight. Hashtag world famous Mike Berry.
Oh, Mr. Ed got me on that one. It's
You're
on my
more than
shirt.
welcome,
It's
Greg.
on my shirt now.
You're more than welcome,
Ed
Greg.
Grizz Wingfield as way $20 super chat. Stream Team rocks. Ed Grizz Wingfield, we appreciate you. Thanks for doing that for us. As we start to wind it up for the night, folks, if you have any questions for the world famous, one and only
You guys.
Mike Berry, also known as the Silver Diamond White Trash Beekeeper himself, put in some comments in all caps, and we will be sure to be your liaison to the red carpet man himself, Mike Berry. Kenny Bach, I want to thank you for that super chat. We thank you, sir.
Silver diamond white trash apiaries.
Yeah, it's not happening. I like it from my chat, but we're not going we're not going any further than that. I don't think.
Picture the scene. Picture the scenes.
I know that's the problem.
If I show up at the Bee Expo with a shirt that says that,
oh, Brian.
You know what we need? All right, we need one of these really good Photoshop guys. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Mike Berry, kind of more in the Cousin Eddie approach, right? The hat, right? The robe, out in front. You know, the silver diamond white trash. He's got that would be perfect, right? And then have all the Berryisms. A shirt on the back with all the Berryisms are. I mean, that'd be perfect. Someone should get on that. Patent pending, trademark.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, send us some questions in all caps, and we will make sure that Mike answers all of them. Russell Koopman, thanks for joining us tonight. He's got a question. It says, Greg, what will Brian invest his honey money in? Good question. Mike, what do you think Brian's going to invest? No, Brian, you can't tell us. We're gonna let Mike.
I know what he's going to invest because he called me and asked me for a review.
Well, that's just one thing, but I'll tell you what, there's I think I've got 3 other things that I'm picking up at the expo, and I'm sitting here scratching my head. I'm like, I'm probably going to have to put something on the top of my car.
He's going to have a Cohen uncapping system before you know it.
There you go.
I could see that. We could store it here for you. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Mike knows, but he's not saying.
Yeah. I can't wait to get that thing. Let me tell you.
Okay, guys, stop. You're just teasing us now.
Well, he had a couple of things. I might have talked him out on one of them, but I don't know if I did or not.
What's
the
that?
Jury's still out on that.
Oh, yeah.
You did. You seemed successful on what you did, and
yeah, you did. You talked me out of the other.
Bruce, these guys are just teasing, aren't they? They're just going on, just teasing. Bruce, what do you think? What's Brian going to spend his honey money on?
I think I know part of it, but I'm not going to say because I'm not sure. But
nobody's going to tell you.
I don't have any idea. I think it has to do with honey, though. I know one of it actually has to do with honey, right, Brian? One of the objects actually has to do with honey.
It does.
Both of them do that. I was thinking, but it talked one of them out. So
I know what it is.
I can't wait to get that thing.
I can't wait for you to get that easy loader. I can't wait to see videos. That's a big deal, Brian. Let's give it up for Brian, guys. Brian, easy loader, making it happen. One hive at a time.
Crazy. I mean, I guess I would lift my 13 colonies from, I could move them like inches at a time. Take me like 5 minutes to do it.
Are you going to spill the beans, or are we just going to sit here and
No, I'm getting. So I've got that heated bottling tank that I'm picking up. So, and trust me, the honey that you see right back over there, those will be the last jars that I ever sit with a ladle and a funnel.
5 hours to fill bottles for the market.
And I'm ladling honey. So I can't wait to look at that's hilarious right there.
Happy cracking season.
He was waiting for Kraken season for so long. I'm surprised he's able to type that.
Brian,
No,
I feel like
Brian-
Kraken season's every day in Canada for Ian. It's like he gets a 2-week season. It's snow on both ends of it. I mean, it's Yule time logs and
Yeah.
fireplace, wood stoves going and Kraken. It seems, huh?
no, I've got that bottling tank coming, and then I've got 2 things from Ricky Rourke that I'm picking up.
I know about those.
I'm actually getting 2 observation hives. I've got one that I'm going to hang in my honey house. It'll be a larger one. And then I've got one also that when I go to markets or I go to, any, like if I'm going to speak anywhere, I've got one of those ones that fits on top of a 5-frame nuke. So he actually got those all built out. So I just need to watch like my room. I mean, once I get there and I see how everything will fit in the car, I think I probably am day one just going to pack everything in the car just so I can kind of see how it fits. And if all else fails, I'm going to talk to this other guy that I know in Ohio that I know he hauls a pretty good sized truck. So, and say, hey,
No problem.
can I throw something? But no, my plan for next year, and I'm going to stick to that, is I'm going to switch over, other than my 8-frame colonies, everything's going to switch over to single brood. So that will free up, I mean, yes, I have enough equipment that I can run, I think, 22 or 23 doubles. That doesn't mean I'm going to go up to like 40 singles. I have, extra. Listen to Mike. I'll see though, because this year kind of it humbled me, because when I even got into the 20s as far as doubles, that's a little bit of work for somebody that can only dedicate a certain amount of time.
Right.
Now, when you switch over to singles, we all know, I mean, I'm not checking every single frame out of the 10 frames. Your outers are going to be stores. So you're only looking at a couple things, bing, bang, boom, done, move on. So I think I'll have to learn transitioning to singles. Okay, well, I'll need to get that pace and get that rhythm for just zipping through the colonies. Now, if I can manage to go up to 20 or so, I've got the equipment easy. So
There seems to be a fantasy land thing, though, and I mean that respectfully, with single brood, because you throw the word out single brood, for a lot of folks, when we talk about single brood management, if it's single brood management for honey production, a lot of times those start off as doubles, and you're shaking 2 boxes worth of bees into one box to then put a super on top or a medium format on top for harvest. Are you talking about actually just raising the entire colony the entire season and just a single deep plus the supers they use? Or are you talking about more of the traditional single brood management where you're shaking doubles down into a single for max production or medium frame format harvest?
So I probably am in the spring am going to get them down into one single and then super them very early. And yes, I'm going to have to probably feed like I've never fed before, because when you rob that honey off of them, they're going to have nothing left, because, when those queens are going crazy out of 10 frames, how many of those do you think are going to have brood? So if I take all their honey, then I'll end up killing them, but I've got to see where my sweet spot is with it, because I want to increase my honey production is one thing I want to do. So we'll see. It's going to be all new. I'm so used to doubles and kind of that comfort that doubles give you. So we'll see,
It'll be interesting seeing how that how the name of the game may switch to swarm management and trading one thing for another. Mike Berry, we've got a question from Tim Morris. He asks, Mike,
Oh.
will you be participating in the honey swap at the expo?
Well, I probably won't. Like last year, what I did was I bottled up a bunch of 8-ounce bears with a small label, and I threw them in my backpack. And the first day, I carried like 40 pounds of honey in my backpack. It seemed like, and basically, I would just swap with people as we met. I don't know about that whole honey swap thing. Like I don't know that I heard it was happening last year, and then I didn't see anybody doing anything, and people just kept. So I had it, so people just kept coming up to me and giving me a bottle, so I'd give them a bottle, and so that was the honey swap. So I said, well, I'm just going to do that this year. So probably just going to carry it on me, and when it's gone, it's gone. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the neat things, as you guys well know, and I know Bruce, you really love this part of the expo for sure, because you always talk about it, and you and I can see eye to eye on this. It's so great meeting the viewers of your channel and talking to them. And if I drop all my honey at that table, I don't feel like it's quite as personal for me. That's for me. I'm not saying the honey swap's a bad thing. For me, I want to kind of meet the people and hand them the honey. So if I see Tim and he comes up to me, and he doesn't have to bring me any honey, I don't even have to swap with me, and we just want to talk and hand him one, then that's kind of how I'm going to do it. If I can find the 8-ounce bears, I think I'm running out. I thought I had a bunch. The plan is,
Bruce?
yes, do it that way.
Bruce, are you participating in the honey swap?
I don't know if I am. I'm probably not. I usually bring a few bottles, but I don't want to bring a whole bunch, so I don't think I will.
Brian?
I appreciate it. Yeah, people have always given me some. I've always had a few bottles. You know, the first year I had a few bottles I brought, but it's just, to me, to lug around a whole bunch of bottles of honey, it's just not my thing. I mean, it's okay, but it's not really what I do.
What about you, Brian?
I only have 28 more jars left.
I'm also running low. I'm not going to have enough.
Selling out, man.
Yeah.
Now, I do have one more bucket, but that's like, I want to keep at least some for, if I know, like, my mom or Tara's family, or, my brother needs a little bit or something like that. It's just the family and friends fund there. But I probably will end up not bringing any, just because it'll be one less thing I got to worry about too. So,
well, I'm with you guys. So what we historically haven't participated in the honey swap. Not that we've got if that's your thing, then cool. What we've done, and what we would still invite folks to do, is usually folks will come and they want us to have a jar of honey, and they'll put it on display, and then we'll have an entire display that fills up at our booth, where everyone is seeing all the different honeys stack up. So this year we'd invite folks to do the same thing. If you'd like your honey displayed at our booth for everybody to see, we would invite you, and would love to have you to do that. That honey then we bring back from our booth at the conference, and we bring it here to the shop at the store, and it's on display for the entire year for all the customers coming in and out. It's sometimes in videos and things like that. That's just a way that we can collaborate, where you can bring your honey, it's on display, everyone gets to see it and appreciate it. What we're going to do this year with the Stream Team, with the Nature's Image Farm and Stream Team chat and podcast studio, if folks want to bring honey, we'll have a place for you to display it that will actually be on display in all the videos. So if you think it would be cool to see your jar of honey behind us as videos come out in the future, then we'll have a spot just kind of designated for you to just boom, put it there, and then everyone will kind of get to see it and appreciate it. I know if you're thinking, well, you guys are a bunch of, Scrooge, bah humbug. What do you mean you're not going to do a honey swap? Hey, I think it's cool. It's a lot of fun. If that's your thing, I think for a lot of us, the expo at this time of year, it requires such an enormous undertaking. Whether you're a a content creator and you're thinking about footage and camera cards and batteries and showing up and seeing people and having a good time, whether you're a vendor and you're trying to make all these other things happen, if you on top of that are running a business and have a large family, there is an enormous amount of work that has to go on to be able to show, to be a part of these expos. And at this time of year is extremely taxing, and it weighs significantly on your spirit, on your heart, as you are trying to navigate through this season anyways. But to prepare for the largest honeybee expo in the country, we can only do so much. And so we are trying to make sure that we are capitalizing on things where we can bring products like our wax tip boxes and bucket feeders. We've got a brand new product that will be debuting at the conference. There's a lot of fun, exciting things that are going to be happening at the conference. The stream team, Bruce and Brian, will all be there. We'll even rope special red carpet guests to come sit down with us at the podcast studio, like the one and only Mike Berry. We'll get him back on there again. So we can only do
white trash.
That's right. We got to class it up. We got to have Mike Berry there again. So anyways, we all can only do so much. We have to appreciate that and accept that. And so I guess that's where we're at. Good question. I got a great comment here from Honor Mountain. Love that name. The comment is yet another great stream team evening. Truly looking forward to seeing y'all at the North American Honeybee Expo. Merry Christmas and all the best for a happy new year. So we really appreciate everyone spending time with us tonight as we just are kind of hanging out together, talking about bees and hive beetles and honey swaps and who knows what. We really appreciate you listening to the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat live here on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel, the replay later, and on the Nature's Image Farm podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys. As we start to maybe kind of close things up here, we'll check in on a few more questions. If you have any questions for Mike Berry, be sure to leave them in all caps. We'll get them on to Mike. In the meantime, Mike, what are you most looking forward to in 2024?
A normal season.
What's that?
I hope. No. I've stabilized over the last probably 4 to 5 years. I've kind of stabilized my management strategy, what's comfortable, kind of like what Brian said, that sweet spot you find. And I'm looking forward, provided we get through this short winter with the bees as small as they are, just an actual season where I'm still maintaining the same type of management program that I had before, where I've actually gotten, this is going to be my 3rd year of actually running the management strategy the way I have. It has yielded dividends with the bumper crop last year, the 50% loss that we all took down here. That bumper crop made up the difference. I still made 50% and didn't struggle. And I'm looking forward to a stable management plan, I guess is what I would have to say. Finally, I've experimented here, experimented there. I went to this, then back to this, and back to this. And I think I found something I really like, whether it's my own queens or somebody else's cells. I'm happy to have a stable management plan.
That's creating some uniformity creates consistency, which creates a certain amount of, as Bruce would say, intentional beekeeping. You start to build on the things that you feel like you understand, that you feel like if there are variables you can work through and still find success. And I think that gives you a certain foundation to work through with your beekeeping that makes all the difference in the world. Bruce, what are you looking forward to most for 2024?
Well, I've got some irons in the fire, some things I'm working on, as you guys know, and I'm still trying to get to that sweet spot, Mike, and figure out exactly what I want to do when I grow up. I do think, I'm in the process now of possibly, we've about maxed out our honey house as far as with the Simple Harmony Farms uncappers and the 2 tanks we have. And, it just, you have some sore forearms and fingers after you do, 1,500 or more frames of honey in a day. So we're looking at possibly, I've got a bead on possibly a used, a really quite old Cowan uncapping system, and so that would be good
Wow.
if we can get a hold of that thing, and just making it faster and less physically demanding to actually uncap and extract the honey. But I'm just trying to, once again, as you know, iron in my genetics a little bit, but I do want to maybe try and make a few queens, work on that a little bit, and just get some, try and hone in on my management style a little bit more. I'm a little bit nervous about the Ozark yard. That's the yard that I really want to do the best, but right now they're the ones that are struggling the most because I've been in them and messing with them the most, and so trying to kind of tweak and change and fix and all these things. And the bees I've kind of left alone are doing better than those. But I think it's because I did that so late in the season. So I'm eager to see how they come out of winter. I'm eager to see what they look like and just, kind of, as I say, drop back and punt, just kind of, I don't know, calibrate what I'm doing and just continue to try and get better. But I do want to get into instead of trying everything, I do want to kind of hone in on a set way of doing things. Not doing pollination this year, may not do it in the future at all, I don't know, which is going to allow me to be able to really pay attention and work on the bees here when they're normally off in California. They're going to be right here, and I can really just continue to monitor and come into the spring and just see what we end up with. So it just sounds like a lot of work, but I'm excited about it.
Well, you're in the right vein where you start. I think we go through this thing every single year. You get to just about the Thanksgiving burnout where you're thinking, what am I doing with my life? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Did I make all the right choices this year? Why in the world did I do that? And what in the world is it that I want to do differently next year? You hit this burnout wall. You finally melt into a puddle of despair. You pick yourself back up. And then all of a sudden you detach from the situation. You reassess what it is that you want to do. And then you put that new plan together moving forward. And then it reminds me of the scripture in Proverb that a hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when it comes, it springs up like a tree of life. And I think this is that time every single year where we then have hope for the next year. We make changes, do all those things, and then it just wells up inside of you like the tree of life. And now you're excited to do all those things, like a cow in line, or all this work that is going to be ahead of you. But you're so on fire, you're passionate because now you have hope in that thing that you're doing. And I think that is so important as we move forward. This time of year is to remember that hope deferred makes the heart sick. Meaning, if you lose hope, that not only does it make your heart sick, it makes your spirit sick, it makes your soul sick. It festers, it eats at you, it tears you apart. But when you can reframe that, and all of a sudden that hope wells right back up inside of you and gives you the passion and the motivation to move forward. That is such a big deal. That I think a lot of folks are so caught in the grind of doing whatever that it is that they're doing, but they don't give themselves the space to work through all of that so they can get to the other side. Brian, what are you looking forward to in 2024?
I tell you, similar to what Mike and Bruce said, I mean, I want to find, yes, I'm going to transition to a different style of beekeeping, but I'm hoping that by doing so, it gives me that stability. I want that uniformity just across everything, and I think I tried to do that a little bit this year, just switching over some of my equipment so that everything is standard. I don't want multiple different types of feeders. I don't want multiple types of, hives. I'm switching everything out so that if I have one specific task, I don't need to worry about, oh boy, well, I got 5 of those over there and I got 6 of those over there. So I want that standardization in the apiary. It'll be interesting. I think though, with what I've learned so far in just the last 3 years, yes, this was finishing up my 7th season, but really in the last 3 years is where I've learned. First few years I was just kind of like that bee haver, but I'm going to take what I've learned in the last few years, and 2024 I think is going to be very fun. Just you can play around a little bit more when you have a little bit of knowledge. So, and like what we discussed earlier, you have to understand, understand the why, and your reactions are a little bit different. So, um, I'm next year. I really am looking forward to it. I don't want to play around too much because, I want that stability in the apiary. But if things go according to plan, I think probably the one other thing that I'll do is set up a couple nukes. So it'll be fun. I mean, it's next year's going to be a load of fun. It is. So I can't wait. Honest, I can't wait.
I think there's a lot of great things on the horizon for next year. I know a lot of us are focused on the all the things that are upcoming. For here at the farm, I am really looking forward to cutting a lot of dead weight, feeling good about changing some certain things up, doubling down on the things that we are finding a lot of success in, and feeling not only comfortable, but just accepting a lot of these things where a lot of things as you grow a business or you grow a bee yard, unfortunately, you do some things because it's comfortable. And you think you have a certain outcome if you do step A, B, and C. But even when you do those things, the results eventually you can't escape the number. You can't escape the data from it. And when you accept that and you detach yourself from whatever it is that you're doing, it's as simple as 1 + 1 equals. And if you need 4 or greater, that's not going to work. So, okay, cool. Let's put that behind us. What is working? Let's put our efforts there. And so there's so much I want to say about that. Now is not the time, but I'm looking forward to 2024 in a big way. A lot of that we'll talk more about later. But I think, if anything, I'm just thankful for where I'm stubborn, I'm hard-headed, but I'm thankful that occasionally God can still get through, and I'm in a position where I'm not attached to those things personally, whatever that it is in the bee yard or in life, and we can look at it for what it is and move on and make great plans for the future. So a couple things that I did want to mention coming up in 2024, February 10th, the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association will be speaking at that workshop just east of St. Louis with the one and only Jeff Horshoff, Mr. Ed. Nathan Coleman will also be there too. There'll be some great vendors. Looking forward to that. So keep an eye out for some links on that moving forward. Another conference we'll be speaking at up in Wisconsin, and I believe you're going to see Dr. Brian Coper and Bruce. Now, so we gotta have a doctorate for Bruce. Now we gotta have something fancy. We're gonna have Bruce and Brian, and the StreamTeam will very likely be up in Wisconsin for that state conference in early March. A lot of fun speaking engagements and opportunities coming up, I think, for all of us. But we're definitely looking forward to seeing everybody January 4th through 6th in Louisville, Kentucky at the North American Honeybee Expo. We are in booth number 200. I mean, right when you walk in the front doors, we're right there. We are right in front and center. You will see the StreamTeam podcast studio, the Nature's Image Farm, and Larabi's super interactive hybrid booth. It is going to be awesome. And so we'd love for you to stop by, spend some time with Bruce and Brian and myself there at the podcast studio. If you've got some honey you want us to have or show off, or you want to be in the videos for us to bring back here to the farm shop, put it on display. We'd love to have you do that. One thing I want to throw out quickly before we wrap it up is if you are in Ohio and you are looking for nukes packages or queens, we do have packages available right now, 3 separate pickup dates here at the farm in Hopewell, Ohio. Go to our website at naturesimagefarm.com. Check out those dates. And we'd love to earn your business. So if you're looking for package bees, nukes, or queens, check us out. We'd love to help serve you any way that we can. Guys, we've been nearly going on almost 2 hours here. I do want to mention we got to shout out our friend, Mr. Brian Lee. Hashtag, he says, SDWT. Mike, I think we're gonna have to get some shirts made. I don't know what else to do here. I'm thinking more like maybe the Macho Man. If you don't like the Cousin Eddie, maybe we should do the Macho Man and Savage.
Yeah,
The robe.
I don't know.
I do need to add one thing before we sign off.
Okay.
As of right now, because I mean, you mentioned Larabi's, so I have to say this. I feel compelled to say this tonight. As of right now, I'm sitting at 119 away from 5K. In my last video, I said, should I break 5K, I'll do a giveaway at the expo, and it's going to be one of the new Instant Vape compacts.
Wow, nice.
So,
Wow.
If I break 5K before then, so, you know, we'll do a drawing and walk right over, and I'm going to hand a box to whoever wins it. So, but I got to break 5K though. So, yeah, that's going to be fun. That whole corner down there is going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
yeah. I'd like to say too, Mike, you're awful close. You're about the same in distance from 10K, aren't you? A similar distance. You're just about 110, 120 away.
No, I think a little more than that, like 220 or 230.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. And
You're getting
break
there.
10K. Yeah, just creeping on up there slowly but surely.
Awesome stuff.
I do appreciate that shout out.
Absolutely. Where'd Greg go? You there, Greg?
It's I am really struggling with this Starman satellite internet. It's better than what we had it for sure, but there are I'm glad it waited until now to just quit as far as the video, which is probably better. No one needs to keep seeing me anyways, but I'm not going to be able to get it to kick back in, I don't think, in time. But I'm here.
Okay.
Mike, Bruce, and Brian. It's always a lot of fun when we can get together and talk about bees. Mike, what is new? What's coming up for the next week for Mike Berry at Berry's Best Honey?
Oh, nothing new coming up next week. I'm actually backing away. I might shoot some hives with the thermal imager, and that's as close as I'm going to get. But no, I'm going to do a little talking. I'm going to start tedious tasks pretty soon. So I am planning on doing something about the benefits of a wax moth. I'm hoping to do a video on that. But I don't know if that's going to be this week. And then I'll just be checking some weights on hives, and that's it. I'm like Brian. I don't open them up anymore. They either making it or not. But that's it for this week.
Nice, Bruce. What's coming up for Bruce at Bruce's Bees this coming week?
Well, since I've neglected my bees the last 3 weeks, I'm going to have to just go see how they're doing. I really don't have any idea. I know Ozark's struggling, and beyond that, that's what I'm going to do. Plan to maybe shoot some kind of video, 1 or 2 videos this Friday / Saturday. May try to meet up with my mentee for Hives for Heroes this weekend if I get a chance. I told her it's going to be really the spring before we can do much, but maybe we'll be able to crack open a couple of colonies. It's not going to be, probably, I haven't looked at I don't remember what the temperature is going to be, but it'll be probably where we can just crack open a few lids. I don't want to go through them much either unless I detect a problem. I think Ozark, I'm going to have to do some things up there to try and see what's going on. But so that, as far as videos go, when I was out in Utah, when we were on vacation, I clipped out 11 nuggets from the Bob Benny video. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch those. But
I have. I watched.
Really had some good stuff. I knew that was a great video the night we did that with Bob, but man, it was just as I was sitting in an airport on the way out to Utah and I listened to that video, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, there's a nugget. Oh, there's a nugget. There's another one. And so I just wrote down and I ended up with 11. And that song actually has its own playlist on my channel. So anyone who hasn't seen that, those are some really good clips of Bob talking about specific topics with the stream team that night. Instead of having to watch the full length 2-hour video, you can watch those individual nuggets of what I got out of that, things that I thought were important and really good. And, I'd recommend folks watch the whole thing if they'd like first, maybe then go back and look at the points they wanted to, or you can just watch the nuggets. But that's just something I put a lot of work and effort into that, and I think it turned out pretty nice. doing that. Is that a? But anyway, so that's what I got going on. I'm going to try and shoot a little bit of video, but things have slowed down. I think things have slowed down everywhere a little bit right now. But man, it's like Mike said, we're just a few weeks away from ramping right back up again. I need to get into my equipment too and just see how it's doing. I've just been, I don't know, it's just been hard to get everything done I need to get done, but it's about to get real again real fast. I'm probably going to use the oxalic acid vapor treatments here in December as well, and just get ready for next year. We're right there on the cusp already down here in the South.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, it's I don't think there's ever a time where there's nothing to do, because even if it seems like it's light or slow, there's all the million things that we didn't do the rest of the year that maybe we try to get kind of caught up on. Before we cut off for the night, I want to thank Mr. Clay Bunner. Thank you for the super sticker. We really appreciate you guys. When you guys donate to the Stream Team and you give us the super chats, we just want to say thank you. It means a lot that you would think so much of us, that you'd donate to our channels. That really does mean a lot. We want to thank you for all the folks who are tuning in tonight. We thank you for spending some time with us. You know, it's that time of year. You know, we're in the month of December, and it's really easy to get absolutely, you know, caught up in all the things with the season, with the parties, and the kids need to go this and do that, and the presents, and it gets to be pretty easy to start to lose focus on what's important in your life. And so I would encourage folks to spend some time to just, you know, let's not wait until New Year's Eve to start thinking about where your life has gone the past year, and maybe what you want to do different or what you want to keep doing in the next year. You know, spend that kind of time in reflection is not easy. It's not fun. It's sometimes pretty ugly and dirty, but it's something that I think is important as we grow as not only beekeepers, but as humans. So I want to encourage folks to spend some time wherever you can, whenever you can, however you can, to give yourself an opportunity to truly reflect on this past year. And also, you know, you are the captain. What's the, is it Walt, is it Emerson? I'm going to butcher it, but there's an old quote that I remember from, I think it's high school, where it's let's see, the master of your fate and captain of your soul. You're the one that's going to have to do the work. You're the one that's going to have to dig in there and make those things happen. So give yourself the opportunity to kind of do that. This is the time of year where we lose all of that focus, and everything gets lost literally in the holiday sauce. And so I just want to encourage folks to remember what this season truly is all about. Mike, Bruce, and Brian, I want to thank you guys for your friendship, for your collaboration, and for what you guys are doing as a whole, individually, what we're doing as a community. It's really important work, and I just want to thank you guys for your friendship and for what you're doing to literally be a lighthouse to others. On that note, I want to remind folks to be the lighthouse, be the change that you want to see in this world, and remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.